98.
Nice. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's flown by. We're coming up on 5 years. That's just amazing.
Oh my God, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been good.
Live Twitch, and now we are live.
All right.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube.
All right. So, hello everybody. So this is weird. Okay, so then you're going to start up the recording. And we'll start. Just kick it off for
Yeah, are you ready, Graham?
Yeah.
Hi, live people. Okay, you ready?
Yep. All right, tonight we've got Charlie Robinson here, the author of The Octopus of Global Control. And I have a feeling Charlie was just sick of the way things are, and he decided to do something about it. So he pretty much wrote like a 540-page textbook on global control. It's quite an amazing book.
Thanks for having me. I just caught up on a couple of your recent shows. Your Walter Bosley.
Oh, nice.
And Joseph P. Farrell. I love that. I love that secret space program stuff. It's just the most interesting topic out there as far as I'm concerned. So, and I could listen to Joseph Farrell read dictionary.
Totally.
Which tends to make it interesting. He always has to throw in the Gesellschaft something or other, like his perfect German.
Yeah.
Makes it even more authentic.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to those. That's awesome, and it overlaps with a lot of the work you've done in this big book too. I mean, it really does. Like it.
Yeah.
I mean, you should probably just summarize the book, because I'm serious. This is like the thing I've been looking for global domination, because it's got all these quotes that put everything into context. So quotes from the power players in the world and quotes from the new media, and it's got bullet points of everything. I mean, it's really like a manual. Like you could have this in to reference whatever you want of what's going on in the world right now.
Well, thanks. I mean, it kind of came about in part because you guys, I'm sure, and like most audience, I had ruined Thanksgiving dinners by bringing up 9/11. It basically had the table turn on me when bringing up topics about, alternative ideas about what's happening in world history. And I realized that for me, the one thing that sort of woke me up was 9/11 in general, but Building 7 in particular. But then as I started to put the book up, I realized that there's, I cover like at least 50 different topics in there, and you never know which is going to be the one that sort of trips it in somebody's mind, and they go, "Wait a second, this is all bullshit. This is this whole history." For me it was 9/11, but for someone else it might be, I don't know, Boston Marathon. It might be the Gulf of Tonkin.
I was just going to say that exact one.
Yeah, I mean, there's always one. So in terms of like with the book, it's actually meant for people that are sort of on the fence about a lot of these topics. So like if you've got someone in your life, like your, family member or a friend who says, "Listen, man, you sound like a crazy person talking about all this," look, and you've gone down that path and you can't bring it up anymore, send them the book, let them read it, and let them take a look at it, because between all of the topics that I discuss and how I lay it out, I infuse it with as much humor as I can, because let's face it, these are some really serious topics, and it's a bit depressing in some levels. So as much humor as I could put in it, I do. I get kind of at people that deserve it, like I don't know, John Holdren and the TSA and the Federal Reserve, and basically all the maniacs running the world. I mean, I really kick them in the nuts in the book. And but how it all sort of came about in the beginning was that I'd like to say I woke up on the morning of 9/11. I figured out it was a false flag, but I didn't. It took a couple years after that. So on this trip, it was Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins.
Yeah.
And I read that book, and, I had an idea. I mean, I knew about 9/11, and I knew about, I had an idea about the things that had gone on in the past, but I didn't really understand the economic component of it, the World Bank / IMF, and how they set up these traps for third world countries or countries in general, but they become third world countries once the IMF and World Bank get done with them. Set them up to accept these gigantic loans that can never be paid back. So in John Perkins' case, he's talking about, Ecuador and going down there and getting them involved in a hydroelectric power plant. And the pitch is, look, your people will have electricity that will light their homes at night. They can read. They can learn to read at night. You've got all these things. You're going to step into the 20th century. So we're talking like in the 60s or 70s. He was doing this, and see, this is how it pencils out. The plant goes in, generates energy, sell the energy, pay back the loan, all this stuff. Well, pay back the loan. What they don't tell you is that it's never going to produce enough energy, or the costs are going to be triple or whatever. And the money never goes to the country anyway. It goes to Halliburton or the Halliburton type multinational engineering firms to build this power plant that's going to cost, 3 times as much and produce, half the promise. And then you're going to be unable to service your debt. And that's when John Perkins' characters, the economic hitmen, come around and say, kind of like the mafia, that money you owe us, well, it's due. And if you can't pay it, well, we've got some, ideas on how we can work that out. It might be you vote our way in a UN resolution, or it might be you privatize your lumber. Put a United States Air Force base there, some shitty deal. Yeah. And these countries are trapped, right? So they have nothing, they have no way out of this. So it's essentially making a deal with the devil being the IMF, World Bank, the globalists in general behind them, sort of pulling the strings. So once I read that book, once I understood what the plan was, it all made sense. So anyway, I came back from Thailand. Just my head was scrambled. It took months for me to figure out what are the implications of this? What does it mean that it's a game? That all these countries have been basically put into indentured servitude. And you realize it's obviously it's evil, but then you think, well, okay, how are we going to get out of this situation? Well, then you start to understand, to look into things like the central banks, and you realize that the central banks have created their own version of this debt that you can never pay back, and they install it in your country. So everyone's sort of a slave to it. Nobody talks about it, like the big secret that nobody talks about. So, like most things, one event led me to another and led me to another and to another. And you go down the proverbial rabbit hole. And so for me, it came down to just feeling like I didn't really know how I could contribute to getting this word out. I thought I was a pretty good writer, figured I would sit down and try and write something. And that's what happened. 540 pages later, I get this gigantic, like you said, textbook of information about events that have happened in the past, and then I try to end it with something a little bit positive about what it is we can do to break free of this, because we can end this grip that they have on us, and these guys. It seems they're gripping now harder than ever. I think in part because I think people are starting to wake up to it, and I think that's probably the key.
Yeah, I remember.
Shows like yours do a good job about spreading the word about all these alternative topics that people go, wow, I didn't know anything about that. And then they get interested. So that's why you guys have done almost 300 episodes, because people are interested in what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. In a non-edited, genuine way. Like, honestly, not, with no agenda as well. Just talking shit about stuff. And I remember that book from like probably 8 years ago. And it was the same thing. I was with a bunch of guys, and we were painting some houses and stuff like that. And these were normal guys that weren't really into conspiracies, and they were reading that book, Economic Hitman, and it kind of woke them up a little bit, and me as well. But I think I was already sort of onto some of that stuff before. But that was kind of like that kicked off quite a bit for me. And then we also had John on like a few years back, so I'm gonna put
really?
that. Yeah, I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna put that link in the show notes because that was a critical book for me too. That and I think that's one of the biggest problems is the central banks and, like you said, loaning money to the countries. Right? There is no more. We don't have our own dollar anymore. It's all from the fucking bank.
Remember how much you studied after that episode? You studied and studied and studied, and then you just totally shit the bed and didn't ask any questions.
Yeah, it was brutal.
For what? For the John Perkins interview?
Yeah, he was so excited, and then he just over-prepared, and then he totally just
tanked it. It felt horrible, yeah.
It was a good one, but I mean, he didn't really, he seems to be walking all that stuff back now.
John?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, he did his part. Like, he seemed to put, like, a lot of effort into going down there to Central and South America and sort of fighting for these indigenous people. I have a lot of respect for that. But it sort of looked like he was trying to, atone for his sins of his earlier life. Reading that book was just like it was like a light switch. I remember to the point where this is as crazy it was. I was underwater doing scuba diving, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh, on my way up. Okay, well that's good. At least I can read more of the book." So I thought, wow, that's kind of crazy that I'm halfway around the world and I'm thinking about getting up to the top so I can read this book. But so with regard to my book, then one of the things I decided to do, and besides just talking about all these topics, was I wanted to put the words of the people that were involved in it into the book. I wanted the people that were involved in these important decisions. I wanted to hear it from their mouths. Now, some of them are, people you would expect, like David Rockefeller and Woodrow Wilson and George Bush and all these politicians, but some also George Carlin, and funny guys, guys that had like a take on some of these events. So I have quotes from 500 different people that were involved in these events, and I think a total of over 700 quotes. So I wanted to give some context to the topics that I was talking about and bring in these voices of other people and hear what they had to say. Because a lot of times I'm reading these quotes, I'm finding out for these people that have said this, and I'm going, I can't believe I can't believe that David Rockefeller is saying the things that he said. And you're going to call me a conspiracy theorist because I think that he's a globalist, motherfucker? He's the one saying it. So that drove me even harder. So what I'm going to do today, like what I want to talk about is I'm going to read some of them as well in the context of our conversation. So if you hear me quoting people over and over again, that you'll understand why, because a lot of it comes from the book. One is, people ask about like the name, the Octopus. It's not original. There's been a lot of people that have used that as a term, and it's a perfect term because, you've got an octopus that's one is smart, and people ask about like the name, the octopus. It can change color, it can change texture. People that have spray ink, use that as a term. Fast and get out of term because you've got an octopus that stay and fight and tear you apart with a beast that you don't even know about like the name, the octopus. So like not original, sort of the perfect texture. People that have spray ink, use that can be fast and get out of term. You've got an octopus. So this is stay and fight and tear you apart with a beast. The real and the name, the octopus. So like not original, sort of the perfect first in a small group of powerful banking houses, generally international bankers. The little code is right political platforms make catfall bankers. The little code party leaders use leading men of private organizations and every device to place a nomination for high party writers, use leading men of private organizations and every device. These international bankers and political party writers use leading men of private organizations and every device. These international bankers and political party writers use leading men of private organizations and every device. These international bankers and political party writers use leading men of private organizations and every device. These international bankers and political party writers use
just a way to summarize.
And scientific, yeah.
Oh, and scientific.
Yeah, and those are, and so those are sort of the 8 tentacles that they use to strangle you. And have you guys ever had Stephen Bassett on your show before?
No. We've talked about it. We've been in contact a little bit, and I met him at a conference. I met him at a conference once. We were going to, but we just haven't got around to it.
And he's created this
disclosure.
So he's the head of Paradigm Research Group. He's got he's sort of, obviously he's in the UFO field big time, but this is his description, and I love it. What is the truth? Imagine if truth was a huge jigsaw puzzle, a big box with 20,000 pieces, and it is the truth, the apples together. If you put the pieces together on this huge table, it will be the truth about the world that you live in. So you set about to do that, all good, a wonderful thing, except there's a problem. Turns out the government that you are living under has made a decision to interfere with this truth process. The political decision being made for political reasons to serve the state, almost never the citizens. So the government has taken a whole bunch of those pieces out of your box and has thrown them away. They're missing. Well, that's a problem, but it gets worse. They've grabbed a bunch of pieces from another box, another puzzle, and thrown them into your box, to your puzzle. And now you have to put this thing together with an idea that what you're going to find is the truth. That is an almost impossible situation, and it is extremely effective to serve the state. So
yeah, that was what surprised me about him is how mad he got when Trump won. He was really counting on Hillary and Podesta to pull this disclosure off, and I was quite shocked. He was like, he left his site for a while. I'm like, holy fuck, dude! Like, you really thought that Hillary and Podesta were the ones? I mean, and then it makes me wonder if there's any deep state influence on the whole disclosure movement as well. And then Tom DeLonge does the same thing. He gets all upset, and then they come out with this government release thing. I mean,
garbage.
I know it's
garbage.
Podesta just tweeted something the other day about fucking somebody better watch their back or something like that.
I don't know if that was a real tweet.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was a real tweet.
Yeah, I fucking took the screenshot from his Twitter account.
Wow.
I follow him.
Well, I mean. Yeah, well, that dude is he before, I just remember Podesta being the guy that was pushing for disclosure, and I was like, all right, I'm on board with that. And then I was like, hang on a second. This guy is a grade A certified pedophile psychopath. And I think that maybe you might want, if you're Steve Bassett, maybe you might not want to hitch your wagon to that dude as far as disclosure. He doesn't seem in the disclosing business to me.
No. I
maybe
feel like
the closing business or something.
Yeah, I feel like that was all fake. Even Hillary trying to bring it up on TV and trying to get all the wording right. Like, if you have to think that much about the acronym, then you're not really interested in it.
Yeah, she's a big phony. She's full of shit. I mean, I mean, how do you guys? I'm curious to know, how do you guys feel in Canada when you look at the United States and the political circus? What do you guys think of this whole thing?
It's a bit much, to be honest.
It's getting pretty disgusting, really. Like the mainstream, and it's really like the mainstream media and what they're doing right now. And I mean, not even, who cares about being a fan of Trump or whatever. I'm not saying that we're even fans of Trump, but the media is it's just unbelievable how vitriol it is. I mean, the lies and it's just so disgusting.
But on the other hand, we got fucking Justin Trudeau, bro. So
yeah, he's awesome, huh?
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah.
At least your guys aren't going around dressed up in costumes all over the world. He was a drama teacher, though, so I mean, what do you expect?
Well, the day's not over yet. We could still. We've got Donald Trump with his totally bizarre haircut, who's going to meet with Kim Jong-un in his haircut, and I cannot wait to see those pictures. That's going to be fantastic. I can only imagine what that's going to look like.
What do you think's going to happen there? You think that's like a trick to, like, I think they're going to fucking try and take Trump out, blame it on Korea.
Oh, imagine that. That's when it happens?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Did
you make that up yourself?
Yeah,
What, did you?
yeah.
That was good.
Did I make that up myself? It's not a fucking children's book, bro.
Well, it's funny. I heard recently someone say with regard to North Korea, you should take the word North Korea out and replace it with the word CIA. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's interesting that they have been so infiltrated by the CIA that it's essentially them running the show. And I thought, well, I don't know how we would figure that out, but it was an interesting thought. I'm less concerned about North Korea than I am. Frankly, I'm more concerned with the media in the United States than I am with North Korea doing anything, because, like you said, they've gone full retard now, and they are pulling out all the stops, from cutting YouTube channels to putting up these ridiculous town hall meetings where they've got a bunch of kids reading cue cards and questions that they've written for them. It was a very bizarre sort of scene, but I guess that's what you get into when you've been exposed for being so criminally corrupt, like the mainstream media in general, but I'd say CNN in particular. I have zero respect for them, but they treat the viewers like they lash out at people as if they say, well, we're CNN, we're not this fake news. But I was in college in '91 when they were the first Iraq war, and they've got Charles Jacko and this other guy. They're in some soundstage grabbing gas. One guy's got a gas mask. The other guy's got a helmet. The other guy's trying to look for his helmet. The other guy's looking for his gas mask, and these sirens are going off, and they're running around in circles. And I sort of joked in the book that if you turn the volume down on that video and you turn up the Benny Hill theme song, it's almost a perfect match. It's so preposterous. And then CNN's going to come out and lecture us about fake news. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, you said in your book, like you said in your book, it doesn't matter after the fact, even if things have changed and they've redacted stories or they've, changed their mind. It's already out there. It's already, people already believe. They never give it the same energy or the same amount of time that they do for a redaction. They're always sort of, they put it out. That's the lead story, dun, 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 breaking news. And they have that little sound that puts people into a trance and sends them panicking. And then if it turns out that they lied about the breaking news, it's just like, we made a mistake. And that comes on at 1:00 in the morning when no one's watching. No one's watching anyway, but still.
I don't think it even comes on anymore in today.
It probably doesn't.
Like in the last couple of years, the retractions and all that are gone. Unless
what do you mean?
Like, you used to get like the headline, and then 3 or 4 days later, you'd get the on page 7, small print in the corner. Oh yeah, sorry, we fucked that up. Sorry, guys. Nowadays, I don't even think they do that.
So, if you're wondering whether or not CNN has any credibility, I would like to give you a quote from them. And I forget who the guy was, but this was like 3 days after 9/11. Here's another development on Saturday. A New York official revealed at a news conference here in the city that a hijacker's passport was found blocks away from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that. No other details were given, but the discovery prompted the FBI and New York police to expand their search. This guy he couldn't believe the words were coming out of his mouth when he was saying this. A hijacker's Mohammed Atta's passport miraculously survived. It turned 3 buildings into pulverized dust, but a passport made of paper flew out of the airplane, flew a couple blocks away, and landed at the feet of an FBI agent. That is quite something. But I think it brings up a question. Why don't they just build skyscrapers out of hijackers' passports? Because apparently they're indestructible. It's just preposterous that CNN would even have the audacity to come on the air and try and push that bullshit to people, but they do. So there you go. If you're wondering whether or not you can trust them, the answer is no. They have no respect for us. They've stopped caring. They've stopped caring that you can see through all their bullshit. They no longer give a damn about it.
Yeah.
So is there anyone out there you do trust, or you are kind of following, or you do sort of, you can look at their work and maybe...
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I think I trust WikiLeaks. I mean, they've got a pretty good rate of being correct on things. They don't jump into the mix all the time, but they tend to vet the information, and obviously everybody is gunning to feed them disinformation. So it's got to be 100 times harder to be them than just about anybody. But I'll tell you what, I would trust them over any of the other news organizations in a heartbeat, because I don't know that their agenda is necessarily for world domination. It seems to me like it's transparency. Now, they might get some things wrong, and they might have been wrong about some things that we don't quite know about yet. But look, you're going up against professional disinformation agents in the CIA and the FBI and MI6 and Mossad. I mean, you are going to get things wrong. I wrote this book in explaining in there. Listen, there's going to be some things in here that I am flat out wrong about. I acknowledge that. I'm not happy. I know it'll come up. I know it will happen. But that's what you get when you try to tackle these topics, because there's a lot of effort being spent to keep people in the dark. And part of that is information, part of it is disinformation, and the worst part is a combination of it. So you get 80% truth and you get 20% lies, and it's hard to tell where the truth ends and the lies start. But if you're afraid to tackle these topics because you think you're going to get them wrong, then just don't even bother, because it's going to happen. So I wanted to be upfront about that and acknowledge that's a realistic. That's a certainty in the book, that there will be some things that are wrong, and I acknowledge that, but I don't think it'll tarnish the rest of it. I call Wolf Blitzer. I tell Wolf Blitzer to go home and get his fucking shine box. I might be wrong about that, but I doubt it. I still think no matter what, he should go get his shine box.
That's not the thing you're going to be wrong about.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong about that.
Most of the comedic parts in your book, you're not wrong about.
Oh, thank you.
So when was this? This was this 2017 when you came out with your book, like last summer, or?
It came out last summer.
So what's it like now, like 8 or 9 months later? Like, because I mean, things are shifting at a real fast pace here, and then I could imagine writing a book like that, you'd have a continual list of things you'd want to add to it.
For sure, yeah. Well, I mean, if I were adding additional pages, I think the first thing I would be doing right now, just because it's fresh in my mind, would be calling out Luis Elizondo in the Tom DeLonge story as utter horseshit and a limited hangout and a total disinformation campaign. Not to say that I don't believe that there are aliens or UFOs or any of that stuff, because I absolutely do. I just don't think that you're going to get that information. I mean. This guy's an ex-CIA agent. What did he grow a conscience last month and decide he's going to now come clean? I mean, give me a break. And I quote plenty of CIA people in the book, but I wouldn't trust them. And they seem like decent. Some of them seem like decent guys. Like Kevin Shipp seems like a totally decent guy. But, if you work for the CIA, as far as I'm concerned, once a CIA agent, always a CIA agent. There's just no point in trying to pretend that those guys are ever going to tell you the truth.
We're going to try and get Kevin Shipp on the show, actually, with my mom.
Cool. Yeah. I like listening to him. I do think that he's probably, trying to tell the truth, but it's just that you have to understand that to have that job, you have to be a professional liar. And I don't even think he could, I don't think he would even dispute that. It's not to say that he's still a liar, but
Yeah. But if he needs to lie, he'll lie.
Absolutely.
It's like once
the
you're
ends
in, they just
justify
call
the
you
means,
up, and they're just like, "Okay, bro, you're a car salesman today." He just puts on his car salesman shades and fucking boom, sells cars.
Like your shades.
These are my car salesman shades. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so we've got some lies here. So if you look back, everybody's favorite George Orwell, there's a great one from it. It says, if all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became truth. Who controls the past, ran the party slogan, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. So you want to talk about liars. I mean, this is like 1984 as a instruction manual for how to enslave humanity. And, it just... But you don't have to go all the way back to the 50s when that was written. You can just go. You can say, listen, if you like the health care plan you have, you can keep it. Barack Obama. That's not true. That's a lie. We found the weapons of mass destruction. We found biological laboratories in Iraq. That's George W. Bush. That is a lie, and we can go on. Cigarette smoking is no more addictive than coffee, tea, or Twinkies. That was the former CEO of RGR. I mean, like, you look back on that and you go, well, of course he's lying. Of course they're lying about cigarette smoking being bad. I mean, that's so obvious. Well, guess what? They're doing it to you right now, not cigarette smoking, but they're lying to you about the vaccines. And some point in the future, you're going to look back on it, everyone's going to go, well, of course they were lying about that. And they're going to say, why were you stupid enough to believe that? What are you, like, hey, 4 out of 5 doctors said smoking Lucky Strikes is better for you. You're like, to your grandparents, like, why the fuck would you ever believe that? Like, what's the matter with you? How could you? And you go, I'm feeling about vaccines. And
yeah, that's what I was.
Well,
exactly
with a lot of the stuff, geoengineering, fluoride in the water. I mean, the list goes on in your book as well. And the thing I love about your book is you have a lot of these bulleted things, because I always envision like, I just want to see a bulleted thing about 9/11 or a bulleted thing about Sandy Hook, and just summarized. And it's perfect because you go through there and you can flip through all this stuff and just see like a nice concise list of points, like the times the media lied. Like that's one of your bulleted lists, like all the liars in the media.
So I've got a chapter called Marlboro Man and Autistic Boy, and it's talking about the way the big tobacco companies sold cigarettes and how compare it today to how the pharmaceutical companies sell vaccines. And so you want to talk about bullet point. This is, you take a pro-vaccine versus anti-vaccine argument down to just a series of yes or no questions. You can find somebody that is pro-vaccine, and you just run down this list.
I'll try the test.
Just run down this. Okay, so this is just yes, no. Is mercury one of the most dangerous substances known to humans?
Yes.
Yes. Is thimerosal composed of 49.6% mercury?
Yes.
Yes. Has thimerosal been used as a preservative in vaccines and flu shots? Yes.
Not anymore, though?
Is thimerosal still being used in some vaccines and flu shots?
Yes.
Yes. Has the EPA set the toxicity level of mercury at 0.1 micrograms?
Yes.
I don't expect you to know this, but the answer is yes.
Or 600. It's 600 parts per billion, isn't it? No, at 200 parts per billion, it's toxic.
Yeah, I have something like that. I have to find. So then the next question leads it. Are there 25 micrograms of mercury in each flu shot? Yes. Yes. Do those flu shots contain 250 times the allowable toxicity limit of mercury?
Yeah, well, in some instances,
technically, yes.
50,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. Are flu shots recommended by the CDC for the general public?
Yes, you can even get a free Target card.
Yes, you can, exactly. Are flu shots heavily marketed to pregnant women?
Yes.
I don't know about in Canada, but in the U.S. Can mercury cause brain damage?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
science is still up.
Yeah, actually, so here, so in the drinking water, we get it. That's where we've got the amount of mercury allowed in drinking water is 2 parts per billion, and the amount of mercury found in vaccines is 51,000 parts per billion. So it's like you are in a bad spot with this. But so how do you know? Like, how do you know when you've got maybe a bad deal or I don't know, something like maybe they're pushing something that isn't so beneficial to you. But there are places that have these like weekend vaccine. I don't want to call it parties, but it's like events at parks. They encourage people to come by, and you can all get in line. All get forgetting this. And so what I put in the book was I compared that to, I said, who else invites you to events with the possibility of winning an iPad? And that's timeshare salesmen. And why is that? Because timeshares suck, and they need to convince you to go there by giving you a free game run after they get their flu shots. And, I mean, there's this community pressure for people to do that, and it's dangerous. I mean, it can be extremely dangerous. And I've listened to you guys. You were talking to Greg Carlwood about that, and I had sort of an interesting story to tell about when our daughter was younger. We were in California. It was a little bit before the mandatory vaccine law kicked in. So we'd just moved there. We were going to a couple doctors to check them out, see if we liked them, pediatricians. And we went in this one room, and doctor says, "Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you guys." And so he says, "Well, what are we doing on the vaccines here?" And I said, "Well, we're taking a delayed approach to that." And what I meant was, we're not doing them. And he goes, "Why are you doing that?" I go, "Well, we just have some concerns. Just going to try and take a delay." And he turns to me and he goes, "What do you not believe? What do you not trust the government?" And I just started laughing. And I go, "No." like it was ridiculous. And he goes, "Okay, well, now I know what I'm working with here."
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa, okay." And I turned to my wife. I'm like, "Let's get the fuck out of here." So we got up and walked out. And I was like, "That is pretty scary to me." What, do you not trust the government? No, of course I don't trust the government. Why would you? It was so preposterous. I started to laugh. I thought he was kidding, and he was not kidding. And I thought, oh, Jesus, man, like this is crazy. And I really don't blame these doctors. I think that they've been in that system for so long. They've been, they come up through medical school, heavily financed by the pharmaceutical industry. They teach them these things from early on. And they're, most of them are from an era when it seemed like the pharmaceutical companies were creating things that were trying to help patients. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think it's run by doctors. In fact, I make a pretty clear case. I show all the CEOs of running the big drug pharmaceutical companies, and not a single one of them is a doctor. Except one guy. One guy's a doctor, but he's a doctor of English, so it doesn't really count. But they're run by MBAs, from Harvard and Yale. They're not run by MDs, that some guy that had a family practice for 30 years and just wants to help people. They're run by business people because it's a business. And whether it's vaccines or, antidepressants or drugs that put hair on your balls or drugs that remove hair from your balls or whatever it is, there's side effects. And they don't want to tell you about that. In fact, when they do tell you about it, they're so preposterous that you just have to laugh. And I don't know how in Canada what the nightly news looks like, but in the United States, if you turn on the national nightly news, you're going to get 50% of the commercials will be pharmaceutical ads. Yeah. And the United States and New Zealand are the only two countries that allow that. And I don't know why New Zealand does it. I understand why the United States does it, because they're utterly corrupt in the media and pharmaceutical. It's a marriage made in heaven, I guess. But you've got side effects. You've got them reading off the side effects for these drugs. It's like, preventing you from sneezing, like a sinus infecting my pants at a picnic. This is horrible. And I don't know if you've ever seen the drug Chantix. It's an anti-smoking. It's a stop-smoking drug. You can go to, there's a website out there. It's like Chantix Nightmares, .com or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And it's a list of all these people and the nightmares that they've had while taking Chantix. I mean, literal nightmares. At night, go to bed, have a nightmare, and like these people have written them down. You've got to. It is hilarious, and it's actually kind of meant to be hilarious. And it's probably not hilarious for the people that had the nightmares, but it is crazy. It's like Stephen King on acid. So
it sounds like a new segment for the show.
Champax stories.
Yeah.
Chantix.
I thought it was Champax. I know Kyle was on it for a while, and he said he was having fucking dreams about killing people, chopping them up.
Really?
Yeah, he said it was fucking crazy.
I mean, I don't mean to make fun, but it's weird though. There's a drug, Wellbutrin, a long time ago, and it was for depression, and you take it and you would, it was sort of like a mild anti-depression drug, but it was also chemically identical to the same drug that was marketed under a different name that would make you stop smoking. So it was like, I don't know how the two go together, but it was like they said, well, we got this drug. Like, I wonder if we can push it. Like, it cures depression, but let's say it stops rectal bleeding. Like, no, let's not do that. Let's say it'll make you stop smoking. Okay, cool. And we've already done all the research and development. All we have to do now is just more marketing, and we can do that. That's no problem. So you'll find these drugs that are sort of branded, two different names, same exact identical ingredients, that they are supposed to cure two separate things. My guess is they don't cure either of them. I think that's just one of my bigger complaints, only because the media is annoying, but like the pharmaceutical industry is literally killing people. Like, John Rappaport is a great writer, and he's got like some really good segments. He's good on video. He does a lot of stuff on Fade to Black as well. Like, once to us, what the FDA or what the pharmaceutical industry does to us, we would declare war on them. You know, like it kills 250,000 Americans every year. Like, in 2 years, the pharmaceutical industry kills more Americans than World War II. And that doesn't get mentioned in the news when you've got half of your ads being purchased by the pharmaceutical industry. So you understand how, if you're waiting to hear on the nightly news that these medicines, these pills, these pharmaceutical pills are killing tons and tons of people, you'll be waiting a long time, because as long as that ad revenue is flowing in from the pharmaceutical industry, there's a manager at the top saying, you're not running that story. You're not running the story about Chantix making people, grab an axe and kill their whole family. I don't think so.
Yeah, man, we agree 100%. It's crazy. We did a little show on the media and who owns the companies, Darren, and then the main sponsors, and it's all pharmaceutical. Yeah.
One less now.
What do you mean?
Well, Disney and Fox are just fucking became one, or about to become one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And then there were 4.
Wonderful.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about...
That's okay. It's just going to happen just in time for all that overhead to drive them into the fucking ground.
Hope so.
The rise of the independent is coming.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope.
I was going to ask you about that since you finished your book last year, and I mean, so much has happened since then even. I mean, do you think that all these action or Trump pulling out of the Paris Accord, all that kind of stuff, do you think there's something real there, or is this just going to be another system of control? Like, cause it's hard to tell. Like,
I feel like the rate of understanding is ramping up, but the increase in the stupidity of the people is also ramping up. Yeah. So we need to get ahead of the curve just enough to get this thing fixed, because the dumbing down, whether it's chemically dumbing down people, kids in school, or people through junk food and or Common Core education system dumbing people down. So you've got this agenda to turn everyone into morons. Yep. And yet then on the other side, you've got the independent media trying to expose all this insanity and awaken people at a rate. And you got to keep that rate faster than the rate of people turning into morons. Yeah, and I think it's, I don't know if we can pull that off.
Well, before we get shut down too, I mean, this platform we're on right now is one of the last ones. Like, for all we know, that YouTube channel, when this goes up on YouTube, it could be taken off.
It'll be gone.
And our podcast, our podcast will still be there on audio for a while. But
I mean, they can't take down our podcast. They can't. We could self-host it.
No, but
Video is a problem. Video is a problem, but
video is more subjective.
I mean, it would start costing us a lot more money, but they couldn't.
It's expensive to post all the videos and host it, all that stuff. So you're at a disadvantage there, and it's their playing field, and it's their field. If they want to take the ball and go home, then they can do that. But I think what it signals is the faster that it's happening, and it seems to be ramping up.
Yep.
The more panicked they are. I think they're understanding that, like, people are awake to their bullshit. Google, YouTube, the parent company, Google, parent company of YouTube, and mainstream media and places, people like this, they just turn you off. They turn your channel off. And next, they'll be rounding you up and shooting you in the head like the Jews in Lithuania in 1941. You know what I mean?
Or Russians in Russia.
People roll their eyes.
You know, that's the
Or
thing
Russians
that
in Russia.
everyone always seems to forget is that historically, you're more likely to be killed by your own government than you are by a foreign government.
Yeah,
I just watched the death of Stalin the other night, and it's just fucking.
Oh,
they try and comicalize it a little bit, but you know, it's fucked up.
He was a short, stumpy. He had a limp, or he had one leg shorter than the other, and he had an arm that didn't work very well. I mean, he was a mess. He was not a charismatic leader, and but he was psychopathic, obviously, and just started murdering people. And that's the thing. I mean, in World War II, the Nazis were so proud of what they were doing, they filmed it all, you know. So that's why you have all the black and white History Channel stuff. I think I've watched every World War II documentary I think I can get my hands on. And you always see the Nazis doing all these horrible things and shooting them. They don't realize that the NKVD, the Soviet version of the SS, they're Mao in China. But, you know, he killed, some accounts are 73 million Chinese. And what is the common denominator between what Stalin did, what Mao did, Pol Pot did? They disarmed the population first. And there's a quote from Mao. It says,
"Take your guns away."
Yeah, yeah. You disarm the population before the massacre, is what Mao said. And I'm not a gun fan. I mean, I'll say that I don't shoot guns. I'm not into that, but I'm also not into getting murdered by the government. So I think that when you see things like these school shootings, whether real or invented, there's an obvious purpose to it. It is to turn public opinion against guns, and I can understand that. I have a very good friends, family friends that had a gun tragedy in their lives, and it's horrible. And I don't like guns, and I wish they didn't have it. I watched a guy who was involved in an attempted carjacking. I watched a guy put a gun to my mom's head and say he was going to kill her when I was, 8 years old. Didn't happen, but I saw that. So I'm not a fan of guns. However, I do understand the strategy, and I do understand the plan. And they're right. You disarm the population before the slaughter. So if you have a bunch of maniacs that are running the country, or you're running the world, say globalists, that's a plan you have to follow, that you would follow if you were them. You would disarm the population before the slaughter. So, and you're not going to have it done all at once, not if you want it to stick. So it has to be incremental. So what you'll see is a shooting in a school, and then they say we got to get rid of AR-15s. Shooting somewhere in Vegas, got to get rid of bump stocks, whatever that is. Shooting somewhere else, then it'll be we got to get rid of shotguns, and then it'll be shooting somewhere else. We got to get rid of handguns, and then it'll be we got to get rid of muskets, and then it'll be we get rid of slingshots. It'll be everything will just incrementally get taken away until you have no way to defend yourself. And most people will say, well, what do I have to defend myself? If nobody else has a gun, then I don't have to defend myself. Well, there are people that have guns, and it's either criminals or the government, or maybe depending on how you look at it, might be the same people. But to be unarmed is to be at the mercy of your government or the person that has the gun. So I get away at that because if I were a globalist lunatic wanting to take over the world, that's what I'd do. Yep. I'd want those guns out of people's hands, and I would do it in a way that they go by the philosophy of, hey, if you got to break some eggs and dead Iraqi children, or whether it's some maniac in the FBI saying, well, we'll shoot up some people and hold it to themselves. It's the equivalent of the shot rather than.
It's easy to sell rich people.
Right. Back to the doctor topic there is a lot of doctors that are also. I feel like maybe it's because when I started listening to more of the alternative health and biohacking kind of stuff, there seems to be a lot of doctors and people that have the credentials that know that there's other types of healing or that don't buy into the medical system. Yeah. And then you also had that chapter on the dead holistic doctor. So I did want to. We haven't been able to explore that at all in the show really, but it's an interesting topic to us for sure. Do you figure there's something?
I'm not taking credit for discovering that. The other people of a lot of doctors that have sort of petroleum-based basis of a lot of the synthetic numbers, things like that, or GC math. and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor, and I don't know the ins and outs of all of this, but the research that I did was pretty interesting. So you've got a substance called GC-MAF.
Sorry, what's it called? Help. GC what?
And
okay, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So there were guys that had set up some facilities and so he opened another one in Switzerland. I think is one in the other one. Bizarre circumstances. There were people that would go. One guy went out to. He was getting ready to go on a long, case of beer or whatever, bag of potato chips or something, whatever for their trip, and then parked his car and then decided to shoot himself twice in the chest and then throw himself in a river. And they're like, "Oh, it was a suicide." I mean, okay. So you've got people turning up, dead, suicides, 2 shots to the back of the head, 2 different caliber guns and things like that. You have their offices getting raided in a lot of these murders or these alleged suicides was that they were alternative medicine practitioners. They were working on curing people with autism by removing mercury from their. I mean, I think the ZZ have they meet on it. I don't know what the final count number is, but it's in the 70s right now of holistic doctors that are just dead, young doctors that are dead under. It's something to look at, and like anything, if your doctors, if they are which doctor, if they have no credibility, and I think the answer is because they do. Trillions to. In this, with the examples of pieces together, you go, God damn it. Yeah.
People that, so harsh. Somebody's wrong, you don't have help, but because
husband being dragged, the more they sort of deny, the more frantic they get, the more guilty they look.
Exactly.
Well,
they just
that
shut
isn't
down,
happening.
They just shut down Mike. Is it Mike Adams or the Health Ranger?
Really?
Yeah, they just shut down his YouTube channel today.
Wow.
That's terrible. I was on Jeff Rentz's show a couple of days ago, and I said, I'm so sorry to see your YouTube channel go. He goes, what? My YouTube channel? I said, no, I'm just kidding. But I said, I'm saying it in advance because it's going, right? Yeah. He's like, yeah, I know it's going. He's like, I just thought that broad, array of topics that you talk about. I'll tell you what, though, if you guys go away, if you get shut down, then all subscribers, all listeners, all fans need to go apeshit. You know what I mean? Because regardless of whether or not someone likes your channel, like they should flip out because this is not okay. This behavior of the people controlling the media channels, this behavior of just turning people off, it's not okay.
No.
And it can't stand. And we do have. I know I get sort of negative with all this stuff of all, how bad it is, but there is something to remember, and that is that we have the numbers. We have an overwhelming amount of numbers of people, and we can vote with our eyeball radio or on the internet, and we got our wallets, and we just say, listen, we're not playing that game anymore. You want to do this? You're gonna kick these people off your channels? Well, we'll go to another channel. We'll start our own channel. We'll start. You guys on Twitch and these alternative channels where you can broadcast. I mean, I think YouTube is overplaying. I think YouTube is sealing their own fate. I mean, the technology world is littered with MySpaces and Friendster and all these places, all these platforms that were the shit, 15 years ago seemed indestructible. And now people are like, what? Huh? Who are they? And YouTube keep this business up. And you know what? You'll be another folded division of Google, just like their stupid social media experiments that they had.
Like right now, I'm sure that they're in the midst of have any means. The problem is that they've decided to start this battle when all these, a lot of these accounts that are getting shut down have made money.
Oh.
So they can hire lawyers. So, I mean, right now there's a bunch of fucking legal battles going on. And not only that, you've got this little lawsuit in the back that no one wants to talk about where all these fucking people are suing Trump for blocking them on Twitter. Well, I'll tell you what. If fucking the Supreme Court decides that Trump can't block anyone on Twitter, then Twitter and YouTube are in big fucking trouble No one's talking about it, but I guarantee you all these people are watching what happens with these lawsuits very carefully. Because if those turn out to be free speech platforms, then there's going to be class action lawsuits all over the place.
Yeah, and it's bad for business. I mean, YouTube is making them. They're looking like jackasses by doing this. What do they care? Why? I don't understand why they've got a dog in this fight. They should be. I mean, they're sending away people, channels with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of subscribers. They're just turning them off. That's bad for business. That's stupid. That is insane. And that's sure. And for a company that is so driven by greed, you would think that they would say, "Listen, I don't care what you guys want us to do at the at the Bilderberg meeting or the CFR meeting. We're running a business here, and we need to, we need to make as much money as we can, and then we're not going to get rid of channels just because that's a political thing, unless you're Eric Schmidt, who's running Google or who is running Alphabet, and the CIA pulls you aside and say, hey, you got some pictures of you with a goat, and we're going to let these pictures are going to be very damaging to your family or your marriage, your job, but we can make these goat pictures go away as long as you do a little favor for us. And what we need you to do is we need you to turn off so the goat pictures come back, and it's just like that's how it runs.
Yeah, it's a lost leader anyways, right? So it could be just why not just take it to this level if you're them, because you're losing money with YouTube anyways. Now you just get to control the message a bit and lose money at the same time.
Yeah, I think that the people are going to. I think that the people are waking up to the bullshit of the mainstream media, and that's a good thing. Everybody comes about at their own pace. Like I said, for me, it was building 7, watching that thing come down and going, I'm no structural engineer, but this is a problem. You've had architects and engineers 9/11 Truth on, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And we've had some other 9/11 as well as the UFOs. I mean, a lot of the little sort of topics that we talk about are even split. I mean, even the geoengineering chemtrail crowd is kind of split and polarized now. But before we run out of time, I wanted to ask you about sticking around with the media and the government. You mentioned the Smith-Mundt Act in your book. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I think that's something that people really don't know about much as well, and it's very important.
So the Smith-Mundt Act was put in place years ago, and what that did is that was an anti-propaganda law that prevented the U.S. government from broadcasting propaganda to its citizens. They repealed it on July 2nd of 2013, and what they did is the Smith-Mundt Renovation Act, I think is what it was. Anyway, it was just a new version of it, and that basically lifted that provision. So it was repealed, and what it did is it unleashed thousands of hours per week of government-funded radio and TV programs onto Americans of domestic propaganda. And it's weird because it was in place. So the Smith-Mundt Act was in act. All they had to do was do nothing, right? Because doing nothing meant that there was a law in place that prohibited domestic propaganda. Somebody came up with the idea, we need to get rid of that. We can't just do away with the law, but let's do the Modernization Act of 2012. Well, that sounds good until you realize that the modernization that they're pulling for, or they're pushing in this, was to take the domestic prohibition out. So somebody decided that they wanted the American people to be subject to domestic propaganda. And guess what happened right after that? What starts happening right after things like that? Start to get Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing, blah, blah, blah. And here you go, because it's now legal. And that stuff is propaganda. That is government-funded broadcast propaganda in its purest form. And so when people say, well, fake news, the fake news is the mainstream media news, and it started once they put the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act in there, because it now legalized and it gave them the cover, the political cover to say whatever they want. And if anyone challenges them on court, and they say, "Well, listen, this isn't to be taken seriously. This is propaganda. This is suggestions. This isn't truth." And now they've got this new law to cover their ass on it, and that is just, I mean, that's reprehensible. Be shocked by this. I mean, you've got the head of CNN saying, Jeff Zucker saying, "Chaos is good for CNN." well, we're all very happy for you, Jeff. And so he hires guys like Don Lemon, who, I'm not kidding when I say this. This is 100% serious. Don Lemon from CNN, he speculated on air if Malaysian Air Flight 370 was swallowed up by a black hole.
No, he didn't.
He did. I watched it.
I remember that.
You can find it.
I remember that.
Isn't that racist?
It is. That's exactly right. It's racist as well as being stupid. Why got to be a black hole?
Yeah, exactly. Jesus. I thought we were past that.
So, I mean, I don't know if I would classify that as domestic propaganda. I think I would just call that domestic stupidity, but still, he's covered by law now because of that. So, do you guys remember? Do you remember who Christopher Hitchens is? He's a British guy. He's really funny.
Yep.
I think he died a couple of years ago, but he's got a great quote that I put in the book. It's, "My own view is that this planet is used as a penal colony, lunatic asylum, and dumping ground by a superior civilization to get rid of the undesirable and unfit. I can't prove it, but you can't disprove it either." Just like, I think you might be onto something. That's exactly what we're like, the dumping ground for the solar system. They've taken all the maniacs
Where does
and
that
put them in Washington, D.C. Well, I think it gets them off the
colony
hook.
on the penal colony.
Oh, poor Australia. They had such a bad rap.
Well,
their food sucks, though. But
it's not
maybe
their fault.
they
It's
did,
their politicians. Before
That's
we
true.
let you go, I know you're waiting. You got a plane to board right away. If you had to pick
Yeah.
a favorite chapter or a favorite topic or a most important topic out of the book as one last thing to hammer home to our listeners, what would it be?
Oh, boy. Well, let's see. Let me find this one.
How about the chapter in the end? What do we do about it now?
Yeah, that's probably the most uplifting of them all. We have to remember that we have control. We have to remember that we have power, and there are a lot of great things in our future. There really are. I mean, we've got some amazing. I didn't really know what I was going to do about it, what I could do. I think in your case, you guys have a really cool podcast that tackles interesting subjects. For me, I just started writing. In fact, I wrote the book. I didn't tell anyone I was writing. I didn't even tell my wife I was writing it. I wrote it in the middle of the night. And I just, this is kind of a funny story. I just wrote as much as I could at night. I'll see how. Together. Never told her, didn't tell anyone. First person I told was my mom, just because I needed a second set of eyes to read the book again and give me some, tighten it up a little bit. And then I ordered them a couple copies, physical copy of the book from Amazon. I had not held the physical copy of the book yet. I got the mail one day, wasn't in there. I went out to the grocery store to go do something. I came back. UPS delivers at a different time from the mail. So the UPS box came a couple hours later. My wife is holding the book. She's opened the box and she's holding this book and she's going, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "Surprise, it's the book." And she goes, "Get out, get out."
Oh, that's
so
hilarious.
I spent 2 days staying somewhere else. And
Really?
I finally answered, listen, I really did. She was so pissed off. I said, honey, I'm not cheating on you. I don't have a secret double family in Utah. I don't have a wife and kids in another state. I'm not smoking crack. I wrote a book. And she's like not having it. So
Wow.
she has calmed down about it lately, but
Wow.
at first it was not something that she was pleased about. But I felt compelled to write it.
Well,
I couldn't stop once I started because I felt like it was important. I felt like my bizarre sense of humor could get these messages across to people. And I also remember what it was like to have these, like I said, like have conversations with people and have them look at you like you're insane. And I was thinking, if only I could give them the context of why I think what I think, it might make a little bit more sense. Would it make a difference if you heard David Rockefeller say that their intention is to create a new world order? Would you believe that the new world order stuff is actually real? When you hear the head guy say, I've been called a globalist, saying that I have intentions to take over the world. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and proud of it.
Yeah.
Like, would that change your mind?
Exactly.
So to me, I compiled these. I wanted to make an argument. I mean, I wanted to make my case on some of these different events and back it up with something. And so that's what I said about doing. And so in closing, since I'll tie up, since we were just talking about Australia and you guys are in Canada, I will put this to you with a question, and this will be a trivia question, and we'll see if you guys can get it. But this is, who gave the following speech pushing for American invasion of Iraq during the search for weapons of mass destruction in late March of 2003? Was it Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper or Australian Prime Minister John Howard? And here's the speech, and I want you to tell me who gave the speech. It is inherently dangerous to allow a country, such as Iraq, to retain weapons of mass destruction, particularly in light of its past aggressive behavior. If the world community fails to disarm Iraq, we feel that other rogue states will be encouraged to believe that they too can have these most deadly of weapons to systematically defy international resolutions, and that the world will do nothing to stop them. So, who gave that speech?
Well, it didn't have
Harper
an
or Howard?
accent. It didn't have an accent, so it must have been Harper.
Yeah,
The answer is they
Harper,
both gave
too.
that speech.
Oh,
The exact
that's
same speech?
fuck. That's even creepier.
The exact same speech.
Really?
They gave the exact same speech.
Yeah, that's creepy.
You
That
can go to
motherfucker
my
lives in
Facebook
Calgary.
page.
We should go stop by his
Oh,
house
get
and
him.
ask him about
Yeah,
that.
we'll link to your Facebook page.
We're not going to anyone's
Yeah,
house.
so-
We're not going to anyone's house. We're
I
just
know you're
joking.
not, and I'm not encouraging that. Facebook, the Octopus of Global Control, my page there, you can see the videos. And there's a great video someone made that splices the two. That it's a split screen between the two, and they're giving the exact same speech. They're reading the exact same words, the exact same way. So if you don't think that the politicians are controlled by somebody above them, watch that video and then see what you think.
Nice.
Because they are puppets, and that's just unfortunately the way it is. But like you said, it doesn't have to be that way.
No, and one of my favorite chapters before we let you go is the appendix. More lists. So you've got like a sheet of, and it's just a ton of banks, central banks owned by the Rothschilds family. And there's like 2 pages of them. The Council on Foreign Relations, the board of directors, and who's on that. People can just look at all the people that are on that and their business and media ties, the directors, the media members, the Trilateral Commission members.
Senate positions as well. I'm not talking about people in government that are Jewish. I'm talking about people that have dual citizenship, U.S., Israeli, and you've got guys like, these are household names: Rahm Emanuel, David Axelrod, Larry Summers, Ben Bernanke, Paul Volcker, Michael Chertoff, Paul Wolfowitz, Doug Feit, Scooter Libby, John Bolton, David Frank, and Shelley Berkeley, and you name it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, what a surprise there. Anthony Weiner, dual citizen. Dianne Feinstein, Al Franken, Chuck Schumer.
Wow.
It's not to say that being an Israeli citizen is a problem, but when you're in the United States government, and I would imagine it's the same in Canada as well, to have dual citizenship is a conflict of interest, whether it's U.S. Israeli or U.S. Iranian or U.S. Mexican or whatever. You should have to pick a team. That's what I'm saying. And so, yeah, there's lists of that as well. So if you're interested in seeing this and sort of a visually easy way to process it all.
Yeah,
I like
Bilderberg.
I like bullet points.
Bilderberg Project for a New American Century. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's a Bilderberg activity page in the back.
Connect the dots to your favorite psychopath. Yeah, if you want to make a list of who the lunatics are running the world, you probably start with the Bilderberg list and the Project for a New American Century. I would say that if you take those people, keep an eye on them because they're definitely up to no good.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. How you been enjoying that Denver airport? I hear it's a little fucked up over there.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, well, they've taken a lot of that stuff out, but yeah, there is some weird stuff. Yeah, they took the paintings out because they were creeping everybody out.
No kidding.
I've got, they're totally bizarre. But in the baggage claim in the luggage area, they've got like, up in the corners, they've got like a statue of like a suitcase and then a gargoyle coming out of it. I'm not really sure if they're just trying to scare the shit out of kids or what. But, and then there's another part that has like a statue to the, like a tribute to the construction of it. And it was like the New World Airport Order. And it's got Freemason signal, symbols all over it. And you're just like, wow, that's kind of strange. And then you find out that there was no New World Airport Commission. It was never really even a thing. So it's a weird place.
I have a theory that Calgary and Denver are connected by their airport underground tunnels through the airports.
I built the airport. Yeah, there's no underground tunnel.
There was a big hole there. You don't know what was down there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a massive.
I heard that they've excavating dirt from this airport here for since they started building it, like in 2000 or in 1995, I guess they started on it, and it's still excavating dirt to this day.
There you go.
The Denver one, sure, but not the Calgary one.
Yeah, Denver.
That's why they had to start building the airport here because Denver popped out. They're like, holy fuck, we better build a bigger airport. They missed the mark.
Yeah. Well, I'm going from one airport to Las Vegas right now. So,
nice.
So from one place to another crazy airport.
Right on. Enjoy your time.
And that was a chat with Charlie Robinson. He heard us on THC, reached out. Wanted to come through. The first email, he had the book and everything.
Yeah,
this is perfect.
I remember hearing about the book, and he's probably on our wish list way back.
Really?
That we haven't made it to. We just can't make it to everybody.
The list just gets longer.
It's incredible. I thought it was going to get smaller and we'd be struck. It's crazy. It's getting huge.
It really is something else. Yeah, big thanks. Charlie is just sitting in an airport on his cell phone.
Yeah, we need that book here.
That's got to be weird.
We need that book here. We'll be referencing it all the time, I'm telling you.
It's got to be weird to be in an airport doing an interview.
Yeah. Especially when it's about this kind of stuff. Like, do you not worry that you're going to pull you over?
Yeah, exactly. I think he waited until he was through security.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you don't have to go through security right after that.
So I was just at an airport in Vancouver, and it's weird now, all the security. I don't know. Because it's been a while for me, and there's like 20 people in this little area all working. Like, who's paying all those wages?
You are.
Yeah.
No, airports are independent. It's on the flights.
It comes back to us. You don't think it comes back to us?
Airport improvement fees,
Why do you think our flights cost so much?
It's fucking ridiculous.
It's more expensive to fly back east than it is to fly to Mexico.
It's more important to fly to Edmonton. More expensive to fly to Edmonton and back than it is to fly from Florida to Seattle and back.
Yeah, crazy.
But I could drive. I could drive there quicker.
And we got the carbon taxes. I don't know, man. Things are getting rough up here.
Sons of bitches. Anyway, big thanks to Charlie for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Do head over to grimerica.ca/support, guys. Sign up for a weekly, a monthly, a yearly, or a Patreon or a subscription of some kind. It really is the only way we can keep this show going and kind of keep growing, and things are always breaking and they need to be fixed, and we're trying to do the new video thing, and you guys want Graham to take his shirt off. None of that can happen. No, it said Graham very specifically. None of that can happen without some supporters. So head on over to grimerica.ca/support, sign up for one of those today, and help us keep these chats going uninterrupted. No commercials, no sponsors, no bullshit. Just us and you guys. So help us keep doing it that way. Of course, if you can't afford to support the show monetarily, check out the show notes. They're in every show, and there's like 5, 6 different things you can do there that really do help out, that are free. Review the show, share the show, tell your friends about the show. That's the same thing as sharing the show, I guess. Sign up for the newsletter.
Connect on Facebook, or not Facebook,
Twitter, Facebook,
Instagram,
all those things.
Yeah.
Like us on Facebook.
I guess Facebook's the
Just
thing,
do all
too.
the shit in the show notes.
Yeah,
Seriously, just do it all.
So you got to thank everybody for listening live too.
Oh yeah, and like this video.
Yeah. This will come back
That's
out
a
again in a YouTube video, right?
That's right.
As when it comes out on audio.
Let's talk about that after we
all
wrap up the show.
Okay. All
So,
right.
do you have anything else? Nothing else?
No, that's it, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. And now we're still on YouTube, but the thing is dealt with. Let's stay live for a minute. I'm gonna throw on some. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention the chats. I'll throw.
Oh yeah, we keep forgetting about that.
The Twitch and the Periscope stream went flawless, but YouTube, my quality is too high for YouTube. I can't push that much data through that.
Yeah, my
Okay,
mom
so
was
we just
saying
gotta-
getting burps of sound, no words coming through. What the? That's weird.
Yeah, because everything.
Did you not have that feedback from the chats?
Yeah, it was work. Your mom might have just tuned in for a minute because there was some things, but I was working with Brody. We're working on it
Was some issues. Here we're running on wireless
for a bit.
which was silly.
Yeah,
And
but
then
I
when we
think.
switched to the cable. There was a huge.
Are we gonna have time to do an intro first? We might as well do one, eh?
Yeah, I need some time to prepare though. But
Okay, so we'll probably shut down the stream for like fucking.
we're not streaming the intro, are we?
Yeah, we got a video every. Where's my jingle?
Graham is an all-in believer in chemtrails.